Card games have followed me throughout my entire life. I've always been attracted to them as a fun party game or a way to pass the time because card games are one of the most basic forms of game you can find. But that is their secret. They're infinitely malleable. Everything dumped to their fundamentals can be changed. How many times have you tried to explain to someone, or had someone explain to you, the rules of a new card game? There's infinite possibility for evolution and alteration. They're also completely indiscriminate with player bases. Certain games have had staying power in my entire life. I still love explaining Flux to anyone brave enough to try and understand it, and I still remember who explained it to me for the first time. Ever since I was a boy, I've loved Yu-Gi-Oh! It's hard to even describe Magic the Gathering and Yu-Gi-Oh! As card games. They change so much of the basic mechanics of cards themselves that I begin to forget where we started. Because of this, it seems obvious that card games in video games would be a no-brainer. Video game genres have become so distilled that copycat releases seem to be spoken about far more than ever before in gaming spaces. Conversations I hear in the zeitgeist focus more and more on games being versions of other games. Every game is the Dark Souls of another game. Every roguelike is a Binding of Isaac clone. Everything is derived from something else. But very rarely do I hear that a card game is just a derivative of another. Sure, there are rudimentary forms. Switch, or Pickup 2 as some may call it, is pretty much just Uno just played with a standard playing deck rather than an Uno-specific deck. But to compare Uno to poker, even though they are both card games by definition, it just doesn't sound right. It's easy to innovate when creating a video game card game. Referring back to Uno, the Uno video game has many DLCs that bring just a normal game of cards into the carnage of rabbits, or turn it into a dance battle with Just Dance. Still, there are 3 video game card games that I'd like to draw special attention to in this video. Games that go above and beyond in innovating on what a card game can be. Balatro is a game that invites you to play it as you would poker at the beginning. Play the highest scoring hand you can and you'll succeed for a bit. Where Balatro becomes really fun is when you realise that Balatro wants you to stop playing it like poker as soon as you can. Poker's foundations rely on the types of hands you can have. Flush, straight, 3 of a kind, 4 of a kind. Each hand type in their ranking is the most universal part of poker. Balatro reimagines this, and lets you discard cards in order to pick up more from the deck for the chance to land a bigger hand. You don't play against anyone else. Instead you play against higher and higher blinds, and you'll have to play hands that score high in order to beat it each time. Each card played scores a number of chips. Those chips can be multiplied in other factors, such as the effect a card has on it. The amount of chips you can score in a round will also be affected by Balatro's main gameplay mechanic, Jokers. Jokers are cards that can have effects on the hands you play, how much money you make, and many more variants on how Balatro can be played. You can have a base of 5 Jokers at a time, and there are currently 150 different Jokers you can have. That's 150 ways that the game can be played and strategized differently, with just the Jokers alone. You can rearrange the order Jokers trigger in, changing how you play even more. With what feels like an infinite number of ways to run the bind gauntlet, you can already see how many different combinations and strategies you'll come across as you play. Later realms of the game begin to look completely broken, and the fundamentals of poker begin to slip away more and more. All of a sudden the game that once looked inspired by poker begins to make poker look like a crude and rudimentary counterpart. There are tarot and special cards that can vastly change the way your deck plays. Every card you see on the screen can be upgraded and varied to perfectly match the deck, and it's a roguelike, so every time the game restarts, it's a new chance to build up a completely different deck. Look how good this game looks. The whole thing has this floaty, extremely easy to digest feel. It's so stylistically impressive that the whole game was made by one person. Along the development process, it's clear that the developer, Localthunk, clearly knew how satisfying and addictive this game would be. The combos you can pull off just seem endless, and the game-altering jokers are clearly the main draw to the game, so Localthunk made sure to make them his primary focus. All of this, along with the game's endless mode after the final blind is beaten, means that I've seen countless friends getting completely lost in Balatro's entertainment. To take the universal game of poker and tweak it and break it down enough to turn it into this hypnotizing and addictive roguelike, it's genius. There is something special about a game that is solely gameplay focused. There's nothing in the way of story, nor is there a certain goal to it other than to get as far as possible through its gauntlet. There's no quests or objectives or anything except the enjoyment of playing further and further. But to have a player base that's constantly talking about it online, constantly hopping back on, constantly thinking about it while they're not playing, that is what makes it a truly timeless game. I mean, making this video, I stopped a good few times to pick it back up again, and I'm still learning things. But this is how Balatro thrives, discovering new things and playing again with the knowledge you've learned. It's brilliant to use knowledge as progression in a roguelike. I believe Balatro is a monumental game in the roguelike genre and should inspire aspiring game developers to push forward. Because if you can make your game entertaining enough and find that gameplay loop that really works, you could make the next indie game of the year. Card Shark is the reason I didn't title this video Deck Builders That Break the Rules. It's a wonderfully stylistic and artistically satisfying game that stretches the limits of what I considered a card game when creating this video. See, Card Shark isn't about getting to the top by learning how to turn the luck in your favour by playing your cards right. Nor is Card Shark about learning how to play different card games, learning the ins and outs in order to beat the aristocrats and noblemen you find yourself across the table from. Card Shark is about cheating, deceiving, and manipulating your way to the top in order to find out the truth about an age-old mystery that has plagued you since your birth. Card Shark centres around southern France, thick into the French Revolution. Although not a true story in and of itself, it does mention several influential figures around that time period. You play as a mute tavern boy, before running into the Comte de Saint-Germain, and being recruited along in his quest to deceive and trick his way through dismantling the French aristocracy of the 18th century. The gameplay is interesting. You almost play as the deuteragonist to the Comte. He plays the cards and you do the cheating. I really love it though. You have to master so many different tricks and sleight of hand moves that you'll need to win every hand. The smoother you can do something under your opponent's noses, the better. And if you get caught, you'll face much more severe consequences. There are 28 different ways to cheat in Card Shark. Everything from checking an opponent's hand while you pour them wine and signalling to the comp to their best hand with a single swipe of your tablecloth, to sneaking into another room and marking a fresh pack of cards, memorizing each and every card that you'll shuffle and serve out to the unsuspecting guests at your table. It's an incredibly cunning game that allows itself to become extremely tense at times. The overarching story and mystery that unfolds also begins to ramp up the intensity of the card games being played. It makes you feel like the mistakes you make seem to have higher and higher consequences. The main criticism I've seen against Card Shark is that it's almost better to be played in one sitting, because the amount of intricate and increasingly complicated card tricks you have to learn make repeated visits to Card Shark intensely challenging. But that is the beauty of Card Shark's gameplay loop. Its intensity requires 100% of your concentration, and that may deter some players. The thing that kept me coming back to Card Shark, however, was its incredible style. Each area you travel to looks straight out of the mind of Van Gogh, and it's easy to leave the screen on a certain shot and gush over its textures and design. It's an easy game to be infatuated with, and shows all its best parts through its gameplay. With a compelling story to boot, I'd love to see Card Shark spoken about a little more. I saw a few good reviews when it came out, but its challenging gameplay loop left a lot of people who weren't willing to dedicate the time to it with a bad taste in their mouth. However, I think that if you're ready to get the components enough to actually cheat the highest ranks, it's definitely worth your time. Inscryption. Instead of sharing my love for this game like I've already shared love for the games before it, I need to show you the brilliance of Inscryption through its story rather than my words. Inscryption's menu only lets you click continue. You're sealed off from hitting new game. For now. So you have no choice but to hit continue. A pair of swirling amber eyes come forward across a wooden table. Another challenger. It has been ages. Perhaps you have forgotten how this game is played. Allow me to remind you. He teaches you how to play his game, and lets you continue on the journey set out before you. Inscryption is a roguelike deck building board game. I promise the only interesting card games aren't just roguelikes, this is just a coincidence. You get animals to fight against other animals with varying damage and health. Cards can also be sacrificed to let stronger animals take their place. Some cards, such as squirrels who have no real use except sacrificing, make this process of sacrificing and placing new animals a lot easier. If there isn't another card in front of your animal, you can attack the card owner. Attack the card owner enough and you tip the scales in your favour and win, allowing you to proceed to your next battle. There's different ways cards can act. For example, a flying type card can attack over another animal, hitting the card owner directly. You can sacrifice a card on an altar to give another card that card's attributes. This is already getting quite complicated, but I'll continue. You can buy pelts from a trapper, and then further along your path, you can sell those pelts for better items. You can come across a group of survivors, and if you test your luck, you can warm one of your creatures by the fire, increasing its potential. Finding new cards can completely change the way you play your deck, as well as letting you make it just that bit further than the last time. I know this all sounds quite complicated, as a lot of card games do before you start out, but Inscryption streamlines this information to you through its board game mechanic. You travel along a board, each step forward can put you in a new place. A battle, a trapper, a sacrifice altar, a group of survivors. No option is readily available to you, it's the journey you're on that will lead you to your fate. If you play your cards right, you can get pretty far through your journey. Maybe you'll even encounter the Prospector, or the Angler, two bosses that can cause you a bit of trouble if you're not prepared enough. However, like any other roguelike, your journey will eventually come to an end, and you'll lose at some point. This is where Inscryption really comes into its own. If you lose, the beady eyes that stare at you across the table begin to talk. You lost. Using this as a learning opportunity may be the only way to mitigate my disappointment. You get up, and you fetch him the candlestick near the door. The door with a glowing ominous light coming from behind its locked frame. If you sit back down, you're told the candles represent your chances in this place. If both candles go out, you really lose. This is interesting, but what is probably more surviving is the existence of the whole cabin around the table that the world of the card game used to exist in. You can get up from the table anytime you're not in a battle. I started to feel quite nervous about the amount of open space around me. Sitting at a table playing the game before me was something that I just immediately took for granted. The laws of video games showed me that this was the core gameplay loop, but the existence of the table itself, and the room it stands in, threw me off so hard that I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. It felt like there was more to be found in the room around me than there was in the card game. And I was right. Inscryption is a roguelike deck building board game escape room game. You play a card game at a table against a strange figure, slowly progressing forward in the board game before you, all while exploring and figuring out several puzzles around you. There's a card that speaks to you, the Rogue Stout. He begins to tell you that there's an escape, a way out of your cycle, and it's hidden somewhere here. You'll figure out how to escape from here soon, but before that, you'll end up losing that last candle, and the game will restart. You wake up on the floor, and get asked to create a card from the previous creatures. Then, at the top of your card, you write your name, before an unknown figure takes a photo of you, and blasts you back to the beginning. This time, with your own card, and a few new mechanics to get your head around. The game keeps going, but you keep winning, and winning, and winning. You beat the Prospector, the Angler, and eventually, you beat the Trapper. Then, after that, you meet Leshy, the man behind the game. And if you beat him, you fight the Moon, a board-wide card that takes an army to beat. But, you'll eventually beat the Moon too. You then get to enjoy your cake of victory.
Oh my, I think I just beat him! Oh. Hey there, card gamers. Ah, there's a set of coordinates on this card.
What?
Inscryption is a roguelike deck-building board game escape room meta-narrative about a guy playing a video game card game about a real-life card game for his YouTube channel about card games. You watch several weird recordings of a man opening some playing packs. Then he finds one with a set of coordinates on it. He follows the breadcrumb trail to a spot in the woods, where he digs up a floppy disk, labelled Inscryption. Loading up the floppy disk takes him to the game we're currently playing. I'm not going to begin to get into the incredibly weird questions this brings up. Nevertheless, you continue. You get your photo taken again, except you try to be sneaky, and take a photo of the cameraman first. Unfortunately, you have no film, and the cycle begins again. You find combinations to the safe, as well as a talking stink bug inside. The safe gives you a key. The key unlocks a new puzzle. New puzzles give you new cards, as well as a caged wolf. The caged wolf becomes uncaged in combat. The wolf figure in the cage and the cannon becomes uncaged, and gives you the knife if you place it next to the squirrel. At some point you'll have to use the eye to win in a battle, gouging out your eye and placing it on the scales. You're then offered a new eye. If you pick that glowing green one, you start seeing writings from challengers and creatures before you. On the cuckoo clock, the writings indicate where to place the hands, and then the clock opens. You find a roll of film. This might just be your way out. You beat the moon again and pick up the camera, before Leshy can stop you. You put the film in and snap the photo. You're free. And turn around to find the button. New game. Inscryption is a top-down 2D adventure game turned card game meta-narrative. No. Inscryption is a deck-building card game point-and-click where you fight against a computer. No. Inscryption is a Yu-Gi-Oh! Inspired deck-building card game. No. I have to stop here. I've already said too much. Inscryption isn't just a game. It's an abyss of rabbit holes and plot twists and surprises. I could go on for another hour. Past the point of starting a new game, none of what I just said matters. It matters to the story, but every mechanic and experience in the game becomes something of the past. You're reborn in a new venture of Inscryption again and again and again. It's mind-breaking how far you stray from the original card game you play. But the best bit of it all is that every single part of the game works so well and continues to be enjoyable. If the whole game was in the cabin and then ended when you beat the moon, it would probably still be in this video. However, it's what's beyond the walls of this cabin that makes Inscryption truly special. I guess it's clear from this video that I love how easily card games can fit into the format of roguelikes. I just wanted to speak about some card games. The roguelikes were just a coincidence. But it's funny that a genre that so often features clones of previous titles can have such innovative gems like the ones I just mentioned. Internet culture has created a fear of stagnation in some. It seems easy for large companies to regurgitate a new entry to a tired and played out series that's gone on way too long, just to drive a profit. However, time and time again, fear of stagnation is dismantled by dedicated small teams who are willing to work harder than most will to innovate. The games on this list are beautiful reinventions of the genres they're a part of, and should inspire new developers to try something new. Card games are several centuries old, and they still continue to be reinvented and pioneered by those creative enough. So, if you play your cards right, you might just be able to create something magical.